Firstly, the Lake Grounds Draft Management Plan 2016 consultation meeting taking place in the top of this building at the moment. It's hard to understand why it's actually on the same night, and with Rain and Night leading it because of the Green Flag Award, Rain and Night knows this is a council meeting, and when you started this meeting, Mrs. Cruz, you didn't give residents the option to stay for public participation and then go up, which is what has been arranged with Mrs. Knight. And I would have thought you would have known that because you've been up there with her for half an hour before this meeting started. But just to say to people, if they want to leave, they need to leave now, wasn't the only option they had. But it's also hard to understand why the beautiful Lake Grounds has been allowed to deteriorate to such a state without district councillors, both for the ward itself and other councillors in Portishead, doing something before now. Surely there should have been a draft plan 10 years ago, but I suppose doing it now has something to do with the Green Flag Award. The draft document includes upgrading roads. Let's not go down that route again like we did on the speed humps without knowing where the money was coming from and what other roads should be prioritised in Portishead first. South Avenue is in an appalling state, as is Coombe Road and also up near the play area on Avon Way. Yes, the Lake Grounds green space needs attention, but where were all our district councillors and town councillors when residents were highlighting the problem? Oh yes, trying to stop our much needed skate park down the Lake Grounds, which had planning permission. It would have enhanced the area much more than green water, broken fences, flooded paths and deteriorating boat huts. A recent FOI response, which is Freedom of Information, indicated that residents have written into this town council and the district council with their concerns about the Lake Grounds, all to no avail. Surely awards should be given for genuine good upkeep rather than councillors effectively applying for their own awards. Secondly, I think we are all reasonable members of the public who attend these meetings, and I'm sure, would the councillor like to turn his phone off? Or put it in a bucket as Mr. Williams suggested a couple of years ago. Secondly, I think we're all reasonable members of the public who attend these meetings, and I'm sure councillors think that they are similarly reasonably minded people. Indeed, the Code of Conduct talks about what a reasonable person has regard to. For example, what a reasonable person would regard as respectful. It has been said many times in the last few months that if councillors feel their opinion is reasonable, likewise they must be mindful to consider what the public feels is reasonable. It is not reasonable to throw accusations at public speakers without explanation. Otherwise, how can residents learn from past occurrences? It's not reasonable to ignore public speakers or have total disregard for what they say. It's not reasonable for councillors to claim verbally in public meetings and in writing they are progressing skate park locations and even include that in council minutes, but then deny it when a Freedom of Information request is sent in. It's not reasonable that councillors on important local issues that affect us all do not record in writing their liaisons with third parties, no matter how brief, because this work cannot be audited or followed through should that councillor become sick, resign or lose their seat. It's not reasonable that councillors feel, as Mrs. Cruz reminded us last month, their job is voluntary, so nobody can hold them to account. And above all, it's important that councillors remember they are public servants and they represent the public. The public therefore has a valid right to be kept informed. Saying no comment or remaining silent when asked a question is certainly not reasonable. There are just a few months left of the chairwoman's year in office, and perhaps it's time to now reflect and move forward to ensure greater cooperation with residents, and most of all, openness, honesty and transparency. Thank you.